Hi, and welcome to the Transforming Kingston webinar. I'm Dean Whitehorn, Programme Director for Strategic Transformation, and I'm really excited to welcome you all here to learn a bit more around what's happening here in Kingston, our ambitions as a council, and how potentially you can get involved as part of the transformation team that we're developing. Joining me today, I have two of our directors. I'll ask them to quickly introduce themselves.
Sarah Ireland, Director of Corporate Commercial and the Council's Section 151 Officer and the Lead Director for Transformation.
And I'm Stephen Evans, I'm the Communities Director at RBK.
So we're going to have a little bit of a conversation around what transformation means to us here in Kingston, and that will be followed by a Q&A. So please do submit all your questions via our YouTube live chat. Sarah, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your role here?
Okay, so the role is really wide-ranging. Of course, I'm in charge of the money, which is always very important, but I also have many of the frontline universal services that mean so much to our residents, such as waste collection, parking, green spaces, the leisure service. So transformation is really important because I want to make sure those services deliver the most effective services and outcomes for our residents in light of the financial pressures that we are under. So it's really important to me that transformation is at the front line, working with frontline staff to make a difference and not something conceptual in the back office.
Stephen?
Yeah, so in the Communities Directorate, we've got a range of services. We've got council communications, we've got digital and ICT services, we've got customer services, customer contact. We've also got public health, we've got community safety, emergency planning and resilience, we've got highways and regulatory services, and we've got culture, so that includes things like our libraries and our heritage service. Transformation is really important because we need to design our services fit for the 21st century. So there's no doubt that the expectations of our residents and businesses are increasing, and we need to respond to that. And you know, the council is suffering from increased demand for local services. So essentially, sort of continuing the status quo just isn't an option. We need to look at how we can transform services to meet those needs of our residents, but we need to make sure that we're doing that with those who use the services involved in that redesign.
So we're here to discuss transformation, and it feels like it's become one of those buzzwords in the sector. But I guess as a starting point, what does transformation actually mean to Kingston?
Well, I think the first thing I want to say means that this is not about somebody coming in and doing it to the council. It's about working with frontline staff and actually listening to residents and understanding what services they want and how to transform them to make them effective and efficient. So it's really, really important that it is a wide-owned theme and programme across the whole council, but also with our stakeholders, such as health or indeed the voluntary sector. So there's a real understanding. So in some ways, it's everybody's responsibility. But the Transformation Hub are about bringing in the support and people who can disrupt and to help challenge and take forward transformation, working with everybody in the council and outside partners.
Yeah, I mean, the key for me is about how we involve, as I said, how we involve those people who are using the services in that transformation process. And we've got some really good examples of how we're starting to do that in Kingston at the moment. So we're in the process of redesigning our website. So for many people, that is the sort of front door for the council. And we do want more and more people to be using our website to access services. And through that redesign, we've had over 25 engagement events with residents who have come along and given us their views on the website, and those have been across the borough, and that's created a really rich source of feedback that we're using to redesign that website to make it as user friendly as possible. That's a work in progress. So it's about how we can continue to work with those people who use these services in our transformation approach.
So you both mentioned there kind of working in partnership, and you're sitting in front of our banner which says making Kingston better together. So I guess going forward, what are some of the things you could have seen in terms of how we work with, be it partners or with residents, that will feel different to maybe how councils have worked before?
I think a real important thing is to reach out and make those big relationships with our stakeholders. So I think the voluntary sector and community sector are incredibly important, and actually probably at times are closer to our residents, and listening and working with them and understanding their challenges are really important. And I think Stephen's already alluded to this, we really do need to co-design and co-produce our services with our residents. They're probably our greatest partner, so understanding them is really, really important. And I think Kingston population, Stephen's talked about the website, we've got a real opportunity because we are one of the most digitally enabled populations in the country to make the most of that, whilst making sure we don't leave anybody behind, and we've got support for people to become more digitally included.
Yeah, we do need to join up more effectively with our local public sector partners. There's some really good examples of how we're starting to do that in Kingston. So we've got our job centre co-located with our customer service centre on the ground floor of the Guildhall, so that many of our clients, many of the people who use those services can come into one place and they can get advice on housing and other issues that the local authority provides, but then they can they've got access to DWP in the job centre right there. So that's a good example of how sort of services can be co-located to provide a better experience for those that use those services. So it's, again, how do we apply that kind of model to other services? So our libraries are clearly places where we know that residents go, and we've got a really strong library service in Kingston. We want to protect that. We want to enhance that, and so we're looking at how we can use libraries and other sort of areas where residents come as community hubs. So how can we look at co-locating those services where appropriate? So that's at the heart of our transformation proposals.
Okay. So we all know of kind of all of the changes that have been happening in the sector and in the economy over the last few years. But I think when people think about the challenges for kind of local government and for London, places like Kingston aren't necessarily the ones that spring to mind. Traditionally, people focus on more inner London, more traditionally deprived areas. Can you tell us a bit about actually what are the big challenges and opportunities that are happening in Kingston right now?
So I'm going to start and talk about the financial challenge. There is a tough financial challenge for Kingston. We no longer receive any revenue support grant. We are totally self-funded. That what income we raise from council tax or from business rates or for other income generation. So there are lots of financial challenges, and it's really important that transformation helps us meet those financial challenges. That's not the only thing it's about, but it is one of the main things that we need to focus upon.
Yeah, I think we need to continually be aware that Kingston is a diverse borough. And we do have areas that are it's not a homogenous place. We've got Kingston Town Centre and Surbiton, but we've also got areas south of the borough which are completely different, and we need to work out how we engage with people in different ways across the borough. There's an opportunity there, as Sarah mentioned. We do have a high number of people who are digitally enabled who can access our services digitally. So that is an opportunity. At the moment, too much of our contact is done over the phone, and that's because our online services haven't really been meeting the expectations of those that need them. So that's why there's a huge amount of work going on to improve that. And we really want to see that ratio change quite significantly, because we're all used to accessing services in the private sector. We do online shopping, we do online banking. We can access those services at a time that's convenient to us, and most of the time we receive a really strong, a really good service. And there's an expectation on councils to match that level of service, and we need to do that. Now, clearly, not everyone can access services in those ways, which is why inclusion is important. So there will always be opportunities for people who need to access services in sort of non-digital formats, and we are very much aware of that. But for those people who can access services in different ways, then we want to encourage more of that. So that's a big opportunity.
So Kingston's been going through quite a significant period of change. We have a relatively new exec team. Most of you only been here about a year. A chief exec has only been here 6 months. It feels like it's a very ambitious place at the moment. But how do we approach this in a different way that it doesn't feel kind of this is fleeting? How do we make sure that the kind of ambition the transformation that we want to achieve really sticks and really has the impact that we hope it will.
I think what's really important to me is ownership. Who owns the transformation? I think if it's done to people and they're not involved in it, then it doesn't stick. And it's as soon as that piece of work goes away, it doesn't work. So I think it's really important. So as I say, co-design and working with the frontline services are very important. And I think culture, giving people the tools, the opportunity to really talk about what culture we want at Kingston. And I think we want a Kingston transformation culture that is about everyone.
Yeah, I think I guess the other point to stress is this isn't a nice to have. This really has to happen now, because we're sort of 9 years into a decade of austerity, and Kingston, like a lot of local authorities, has had to take some tough decisions over those last 9 years, and the easy decisions have been taken. So we can't take too much more of our staffing budgets. We've taken a significant amount out of the structure over the last couple of years in particular. So we need to look at how services are designed and delivered. So almost this has to happen for the future of the authority and the future of public services. So it's predicated on those grounds.
Okay. So we're going to move on now towards the Q&A and taking some of the questions that we've received. We'll start by answering the ones that have come up, and then please remember to continue submitting your questions via the live YouTube channel. So Sarah, unsurprisingly, as Section 151 officer, you mentioned the kind of financial challenge that we're facing, but is this all about savings?
No, not at all. I think, and we probably all of us have got experience of being involved in transformation or change, which just focuses on the money and ends up not looking at the outcome, and the outcome becomes ineffective, and actually it builds more money and more resource loss into the system. So it is definitely not about that. It has to be about efficiency but effectiveness, and really understanding the importance of prevention and the importance of early help, particularly in our people services, and therefore that has to be the focus as well.
Yeah, just to add, I mean, for me it's all about as I say, it's about matching, it's about rising expectations of residents, and we need to respond to that. So it's making sure that our services are transformed to meet those expectations in a way which are sustainable, and we want to. Our transformation program is about sort of getting to a position where our services are sustainable over the longer term, so we don't have to keep taking sort of short-term decisions. This transformation approach is getting to a longer-term position for our local services. So,
some of the questions coming in from our audience now. So somebody's asking, have you heard of the Wigan deal? It sounds like some of your thinking could be inspired by their journey.
Right, absolutely. And we've had an opportunity as a management team to talk to Donna and talk about what she did there as chief exec, which was very inspiring. I think the only thing to say, we need the Kingston deal. Wigan is a different place to Kingston, but I think some of the tools and their thoughts and how they engage residents, definitely, I think it is something that could inspire and has inspired our journey.
Yeah, several colleagues in Kingston have been up to Wigan to speak to the team up there about some of their experiences. Donna Hall came down to Kingston a few weeks ago and sort of had a session with our senior management team. So we are looking at how we can learn from best practice, not only from Wigan but from other local authorities. Back in January this year, we had a local government peer review. So the Local Government Association came in with other councils to look at how we're operating as a council. So we are really looking at learning from best practice from a range of authorities.
So moving on to our next question, Sarah, I think you mentioned the stat about our digitally enabled population. So following on from that, what's our next main focus around improving the digital services that are currently on offer? This is for you, Stephen.
Yeah, so I can start that. So firstly, it's about improving our website, because as I say, we want as many people as possible to access council services through that means. So we are redesigning our website currently. The last thing you'll see improve towards the end of this year is a new front page of the website. We're doing that last of all, because what we don't want to do is redesign a new front page, and then when you get into it, take a few clicks and what's beneath that is not fit for purpose. But it's not just about putting more and more services online. It's how we can use technology to benefit our residents and benefit our community. So we're working with colleagues in adult social care, for example, about how we can use assisted technology to allow people to live independently in their own homes for longer. So there's a lot of work focused on our website, but also it's about how we can use technology across the council to transform those services.
Sarah, you kind of mentioned earlier when we were speaking around kind of working in partnership, particularly mentoring kind of the voluntary and community sector. So a question that's come in from the audience now is, have you looked at the strengths and the assets of the people in the borough?
So I think there's been loads of work done around Connected Kingston, and we've got the Community Catalyst. I think that's going to do lots of work, and that's been engaged across communities and across council services and with the voluntary sector and stakeholders. But I think there's more that we can do. And I think part of the transformation in maximising independence, which is one of our big themes, is to look at that and how we do that. And I think the voluntary sector will be key in understanding that. So I think we've started, but there's more work we can do.
Yeah, just to add from me, a big priority for the council is to improve how we engage with our residents, and that's something that we're doing a lot of work on at the moment. There's been some, as I said, there's been some good examples about how services have used engagement with residents to improve those services. I talked about at the various events we've had around designing our website, but we know that people need to engage and communicate with people in different ways. So we're improving our consultation portal, but for those really big areas of change, we are investing more time and money and effort. So a big program for the council is the Cambridge Road estate, and we've got a significant process of engagement for residents about how we talk to them about some of the changes that are likely to be happening on Cambridge Road. So community engagement and getting feedback on our proposals and the priorities of residents is a really important part of our transformation as a council.
So following on, what are some of the barriers that you see to empowering the organisation on this change? So suggestions are government, resources, capacity to change, other?
I definitely think capacity is an issue, and at times in certain places it will be capability. So I think there needs to be a flexibility to understand when you might need specialist capability to come in, whilst maintaining that balance about it be something that's owned by the services and owned by the residents. Definitely resources are an issue. I think the big thing is making sure we're able to articulate our return on investment, and that's wider than just money. That's the added benefits. I think when you don't do that, it becomes a barrier to people accepting kind of transformation, because they see lots of things happening but no return on investment, a narrative to be able to understand what impact it's having.
Yeah, I guess the other barrier is about staff not being with us in this journey, which is why it's about how we involve staff in this process of transformation, and we really need to understand how our staff feel about it, but most importantly, we need to sort of work with them because they're going to be the ones that are sort of leading this transformation. So we have done a lot of work over the last couple of years about the culture of the organisation, about how we engage with staff more effectively, how we get feedback from staff, and that's something again that I think we've made some good progress on over the last couple of years. But it's something that we need to continue to keep as a priority.
So the things we've kind of mentioned today are kind of some of the big complex issues. How do we approach benefits realisation in doing that? So how do we ensure that the changes are sustainable and have achieved the expectations?
So I think I've mentioned return on investment, which is really important, and it's wider than just the financial cash flow savings. We need to look at benefits and impact on outcomes. In the long term, I think what organisations are not very good at, and Kingston's no different, is that lessons learned, having a look at what you've learned and keep looking at it. So I think it's really important to be very, very clear about what we intended to achieve and what was achieved, and understand why that was different, so that you can learn for the next time.
Yeah, and for me, transparency is really important. So in November, we're going to be, each of our council committees is going to be receiving a performance report about how the council is performing across a range of areas against key performance indicators. And that'll be the first time the council's ever done performance reporting in a way which the public can engage with. And we need to be continuing to sort of talk to residents about some of the benefits that they are seeing or otherwise from this transformation. So again, it's part of this engagement. There's also something about how we use our data in a more effective and more transparent ways. Lots of councils are doing some really interesting things with data through their online data portals, and that's something that we would like to continue to sort of build on here in Kingston, about opening up some of the data we hold to be more transparent and more readily available for our residents.
So maybe we're getting a little bit of challenge here from our audience. The next question is there a danger in putting too many eggs in the digital basket? Yes, it's important, but perhaps more suited to transactional services than people-centred ones.
So I don't think we are putting all our eggs in the digital basket. I think the programme has a number of themes, including effective asset management, about how we commission, and also about maximising independence. I suppose I would challenge the person on, is it just about transactional services? I think there's lots that digital can do to support independence. We know of local councils who use Alexa for older people to help them stay in their homes. So I do think that there is an opportunity for it to be widely used, but I don't think it's the panacea for everything. And therefore, there's need to look at other things within resources.
Yeah, I mean, there is a clear digital element, there's a clear digital strand to our transformation, but it's also about looking at all the services we deliver and looking at how they can be improved and how they essentially meet the needs of those that use them. So a big part of our transformation program at the moment is how we transform our adult education services. And we know that these are really well used, really well liked services. We've got over 6,000 learners signed up to our adult education services. And we need to look at how we're making sure that our adult education courses are tailored to the needs of to those that use them, but also to the sort of needs of local employers, and also around digital skills and other things. So yes, we will continue to deliver services in a sort of face-to-face way, but digital is an important part of our overall transformation strategy.
So we're going to take our final audience question now. So Stephen, it's probably one for you.
Yeah.
Are we going to be looking at automating more back-end processes in order to free up resource elsewhere?
Yeah, and so we're currently piloting robotic process automation across a range of our back office services. So some of our revenues and benefits services, we're looking at. Got some work currently ongoing at looking at how we can improve some of those services using RPA, robotic process automation. We're also doing some work with a company called FutureGov to look at our sort of digital readiness for some of those services. So it is a key piece of work at the moment to deliver our savings programs. And as you say, as a person who says this written into us, it's about how we can free up as much resource as possible for the front line.
Okay, thank you. So it's coming to time we'll have to draw it to a close. But before we go, I just wondered whether each of you could just tell us in kind of your summary around the kind of place you think Kingston is to work at.
I think that as the corporate peer review chapter said, Kingston's time is now. So I think it's a really, really interesting place to come with a new chief exec, a refreshed administration with the biggest number of councillors they've ever had, and a big agenda. So I think it's a really exciting place to be.
Yeah, Kingston's a great place to work. I've been here 18 months now, and it's an exciting place to come. I think we've got a really ambitious agenda. We've got a really ambitious senior leadership team. We've got an ambitious set of councillors, and we've got some very demanding and some very ambitious residents and businesses. So come to Kingston and help us on this journey.
So on that note, please remember to log on to www.kingstontransformationhub.co.uk to apply for the roles that are currently out now. The deadline is the 12th of October, and we really hope that we'll see some of you through the next stages of the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.